We're looking at a horoscope from the point of view of some life-threatening women's complaints. When we are dealing with women, we must remember that it is the moon and its progressions and its other movements transiting that can produce the difficulties of women, like amenorrhea, no period, dysmenorrhea, pain with period, menorrhagia, excessive bleeding with period. But we must remember that the female organs are inside the body, and they are at a higher level than those of the male. And that is why we give those organs lunar rulership. Mars rules the male organs, but the moon rules female organs. Therefore, in the chart that we're going to examine, the chart up here is a progress chart. We therefore must give special prominence not only to interceptions, but also to the movement of the moon. And the moon at birth was in Aries in the 3rd house, whereas in progression it is 20 degrees in Scorpio. Moon in Scorpio suggests hemorrhage. Hemorrhage from female organs. We are looking at the horoscope of a female. Hemorrhage, bleeding from female organs, therefore likely to be inside the body. The bleeding is inside the body, and it is therefore likely to be hidden. Likely to be hidden, and when I'm asked to describe how you approach a chart, I could of course give you standard procedure, which is for people who are beginners in astrology, but when I do it myself, usually I'm cornered at a seminar somewhere, abroad often, and have to come to do a reading in a matter of seconds. And therefore I approach the chart and look for the most conspicuous features of the chart. So here we have a moon in Scorpio in the 10th house, suggesting that the bleeding may come on during a business occupation, 10th house. And frequently female bleedings do come on while they are working in a business, and this is why women are entitled by law to take time off at least once a month in order to deal with the factor of bleeding. Natural function in women associated with their periods. All I have here is a report that this woman, now in her late 30s or middle 30s, nearly died as the result of internal hemorrhage, and that she had a condition known as fibroids, and also she was concerned with the arrhythmia of the heartbeat. The heart was beating arrhythmically, and every now and again there was a large extrasystole. The heartbeat would thump loudly, forcefully, and unpleasantly, frightening the patient. And I pointed out the factor of the moon, suggesting female sexual organs in Scorpio, and possibly hemorrhage arising from it during a period of working, 10th house, the profession. But notice straight away that the moon is square to the sun, which is in Aquarius, and it's a strong square, and the sun rules the heart, and Aquarius rules the rhythm of the heart, the succession of beats, and Aquarius is on the second house of beating, often associated with a stick. And so straight away, because I know something of the history of the patient, I see a square between the sun and the progress moon, suggesting arrhythmia and possibly these extra. Aquarius rules larger than, extra than Aquarius, and so there is in the horoscope quite clearly the extrasystoles of an arrhythmic heart. Then we come to the factor of the uterus, and the uterus is ruled by Pisces. Pisces rules caves and uteruses. And here the uterus is indicated by 4 planets in Pisces, and Pisces is intercepted in the second house, suggesting that when the uterus is squeezed or contracts, there could be difficulties involving the uterus. In fact, we know that the particular condition relating to the uterus is what is known as fibroids. And the second house is the house of lumps. And a fibroid is a fibrous lump. All right? You have in front of you a diagram, an anatomical diagram of the female parts. You will see in the diagram, very prominently displayed, there are the 2 ovaries. There are the 2 ovaries and the fimbria embracing the ovaries, the fimbria of the tubes. There are 2 tubes and 2 ovaries. When the ovary ejects its ovum once every 28 days, it passes down the tube into the uterus. And the uterus is a muscular organ which has very special muscle which is related to the sympathetic nervous system. The wall of the uterus is clearly displayed here, and in the wall you will see these ovoid lumps, which are fibrous tissue that have developed, and they are called fibroids. And these fibroids can sometimes be benign, they hardly worry the woman at all, and on other occasions they can be intrusive and dangerous. They can break out into the uterus and cause hemorrhage of the ovarian artery. They can break out outwards, not into the uterus, but outwards into the cavity of the abdomen, or they can remain fairly benign within the wall of the uterus. Notice how the uterus, which is Pisces, is intercepted in our picture here we have the uterus. Notice shapes. Notice the morphology of the sign of Pisces, strongly suggesting the opening of the uterus, or the cervix of the uterus, or the neck of the uterus, if you like, narrowing. Suggested also by this interception in the second house, which is the house of binding and tightening. And when the uterus goes through the motions of contracting its muscle and evicting the contents of the uterus, which is monthly, in that the lining of the uterus is built every month, every lunar month, and it is evicted when the uterus contracts, as it would contract in the birth of a child. Normally, the egg, if it is fertilized, will embed itself in the wall of the uterus, will embed itself in the wall of the uterus, and the uterus will enlarge as the ovum, the fertilized egg, expands and takes up its position inside the uterus. And this continues until the birth of the child. But here we have a condition related to the uterus in this woman, and the Pisces is intercepted. Pisces is opposite the 8th house, and the 8th house shows the woman, which is Virgo, and it shows also factors in it like the rhythmicity of Jupiter. That could be contractions of Jupiter. It suggests bleeding, which is the 8th house, and it suggests extrasystoles, in that Pluto is the kind of planet that expels. It is in Leo, which rules the heart, and the extrasystole is the loud thumping, loud Pluto retrograde, loud thumping of the heart, or beat of the heart. And so this is quite clearly displayed in the horoscope. There are other factors here which we must pause to consider. The native of this horoscope nearly died as the result of hemorrhage. And the hemorrhage I have indicated was Moon in Scorpio, square to
Sun. Aquarius.
Well, square to the heart and its rhythmical beat, but also related to the planets which are inhibited, intercepted in Pisces in the second. The person here is a very attractive lady, a very attractive lady who is a businesswoman. She works for a business. She works for a business. Very attractive. And she uses makeup on her face with absolute perfection. So here you have two opposing factors which are part of the interception. Firstly, a uterus that has got lumps in it. That's Vulcan, a lump in the uterus, squeezed excessively and hemorrhage resulting. But at the same time, Pisces is the sign of makeup put on the face, which is the sun. Sun rules the face, progress sun, with makeup on it. And she is an expert beautician. She's an expert beautician. And here you have all the elements of makeup, beauty, the face, Vulcan here would be the neck, and a very attractive person indeed. She also has Cancer intercepted, and Cancer intercepted suggests her extreme beauty. And also in the 7th house there is a natal Uranus, which makes her an extraordinary person. She is a person who has very unusual characteristics, almost weird, certainly eccentric, and even when Uranus has progressed, it is still retrograde and must be taken into account for her eccentricity. She is a person who, for instance, as part of the eccentricity, adores dogs, and was often accompanied by dogs, bringing them to lectures, carrying them around in her car, and having a dog in her home very prominently displayed. And obviously the dog is there partly because of the 2nd house possessions, security, a dog for security. Or may say this is beloved, a beloved dog for security. And it's a very large dog indeed, which means that Aquarius on the cusp is large, a large dog for security. Another characteristic which is shown in this chart is the fact that the lady concerned has got Neptune in the midheaven. And for me, Neptune in the midheaven is always indicative of scandal at some time or the other in the life. In this case, Neptune is in Scorpio, and it suggests that there is possibly, probably, sexual scandal. And one would not find that unusual if you were cursoring it, because she is such a beautiful person. Elegant and clear-cut, personable. Now notice the intercepted Capricorn in the 1st house. The intercepted Capricorn in the 1st house. This is the house of attitudes. The 1st house is the house of attitude. It's also the house of the first 30 years of life. And it has got 3 planets intercepted in Capricorn. Capricorn is a crystallizing factor, And when you find Capricorn in the first house, you must always assume that there are crystallizations of character. Crystallizations of character. Those things that are embedded or emerge in the first 30 years of life. Capricorn rules crystallization. These people, obviously, are very difficult to change. They're very difficult to change. And when you consider that opposite Capricorn is Cancer, suggesting vacuumous conditions if marriage is concerned. Marriage is not a concern here. When you've got Cancer intercepted in the 7th house, it's unlikely that the person will marry, at least in the early part of the life, or in the first half of the life. When you have got Gemini on the cusp, it suggests that if there were a marriage, it would be while the person was young, very young. Venus, ruler of Gemini, is youth, young. And Cancer would suggest, intercepted in the house of marriage, would suggest a marriage that comes to nothing. Comes to nothing. I am unable, at this stage, notice how Gemini spreads itself over almost a whole quarter of the chart. A quarter of the chart, with Mars in Gemini progressed, and this suggests a duality of nature sexually, a double attraction. What might it suggest in anybody's chart if you had Mars, progressed or otherwise, in a Geminian situation?
Bisexuality.
Bisexuality, yes. Thank you, Claregate. Bisexuality is suggested. And the bisexuality, therefore, may be related to the scandal factor there, because Mars is the ruler of Scorpio and Neptune in the midheaven is scandal. And so there are many interesting features here, and they are miraculously displayed. Why do I say miraculously? If you had a person with 4 planets in Pisces, what might it suggest in that chart? The miraculous. Pisces, which is the ruler of the 12th house, is a house of wonderment, the miraculous, the religious, the super-religious, things that bring amazement. Pisces, and they're very prominent here. And this is an extraordinary person with a miraculous attraction to her. There is that other word that we use sometimes for endearment, and we call it charisma. Has a tremendous charisma here. The question has been asked why I should declare that this chart has elements of the miraculous in it. And I refer, of course, to the fact that there are 4 nice planets in Pisces, and the Pisces is intercepted, which means that it could, under circumstances, appropriate circumstances, emphasize, amplify the nature of Pisces, and one of those things is the miraculous. And miracles are produced where they can be seen or where they can be heard. And in this horoscope, there is enough of the Pisces factor to see that it is amplified. Firstly, the girl concerned has this love of dogs and used to parade with her huge bull mastiff, as it was, and that suggested other elements in the horoscope that suggested the emphasis on Christianity. And Christianity was ruled by Pisces, and the most persistent element of Pisces is the miraculous and saintliness. Don't forget, Pisces rules the saints, Peter and Paul. If you've got the Christian name Peter and Paul, then they fall under Pisces and the 12th house. And so saintliness suggests the miraculous, and there's my answer to. But of course it also suggests Roman Catholicism, and it might suggest that this person, probably born a Catholic, has an intercepted Pisces and probably has not practiced Roman Catholicism. Half of my family are Catholics, and they have not practiced Catholicism in any way, and Pisces is very strong in my family. My sister is born in Pisces, for instance.